Hi, I'm Chantelle from 141 Design Company, and in this episode, I'd like to discuss my floss organization. I am using two products that I currently have in our Etsy shop. One of them is what's called a floss drop. This floss drop has a 1.5-inch hole cut for storing your floss, and another one for hanging on a peg. I use this drop to store my backstock. As you can see, I have almost 6 skeins of floss loaded up on this one spot. This works wonderfully on my slat wall in my craft room where I have multiple pegs and I hang these in colorway. So all of my blacks hang together, all of my reds. That way I can pull them if I'm going to do any color conversions. When I get ready to kit up a project, I simply will, and it needs, for instance, black coffee, I'll take one skein off and put that back on my wall, and then have my floss dial ready to go in my bag and load the skein there. The floss dial has 16 spaces for floss, and this is also available in our Etsy shop. You may have seen them with different things etched onto the front of them. They are unfinished, and this is cut from maple. They are also 1/4 of an inch thick. On the back, I just use a pencil, and I'll write down the name or the number of the floss that's going into my bag with my project. This fits nicely then right into my project bags and has all of my floss right on them and isn't bulky at all. When I'm done with my cross stitch project and unload this dial, I just grab the leftovers from the skein off of the dial and load it back up onto the drop that's on my storage wall. And that's how I store those in a more permanent situation. I also have a temporary fun thing that I cut out, and a number of you had asked me about this, so I thought I'd share with you the dimensions and how these were cut. These drops are out of cereal boxes or just any reclaimed cardboard that you have. Granola boxes, some have shared that they've used Kleenex boxes, anything, but I was just punching these out because I was looking for, paper plates were working good too, looking for something where I could get multiple kits put together because I'm getting ready to start quite a few new projects, and it would be easier to just use some of these things. Then I could even throw them away if I'd like. And I have a little bit more space for writing down details. Now, I looked for a actual tag punch, and I didn't find one that I liked. So I decided to go like with a quilting method and cut strips and then just put hole punches into those. So that's what I'm going to show you now. I did find these were really nice for having all of the space back here for writing down things that obviously were the name of the floss. But for instance, if this was a color conversion from another piece, I was able to write the name of the actual floss, and then I could also put the number that it was a substitution for. Let me bring my cutter over and we'll just talk about cutting up a box. I know that sounds silly, but that's what we're going to discuss. So for instance, I've got 3 grandkids, so we have quite a few of these fun cereal boxes around, and my daughter can bring things over too as well. But I'll grab the cereal box itself and then just cut down the sides to flatten it out and then trim off the bottoms. Once I've done that, then I will take my paper cutter, which is this one. I use this for trimming paper as well as cutting the press on board for my cross stitch finishing. And I cut the boxes up into 2-inch strips. So there's our set of 2-inch strips. From there, I cut those strips into 3-inch pieces. So now I have a 2 by 3-inch rectangle. Once I have my rectangles, let me just move that out of the way. I then use a few different tools to convert them into drops. One of them is this 1-inch hole punch. I have a corner rounder that's pretty dull. It's old from Creative Memories, but it's still working. And then obviously a handheld hole punch. This I just eyeball it, but I need to get this 1-inch punch in first. What I did was when I put the punch in all the way and butted it up in order to get that put my hole way too high on the punch. So I found a spot that I liked, and I marked a line on my punch. And now I'll just line the bottom up, eyeballing that I've centered it, and punch that initial hole. And I'll go through and do that with all of my drops. I usually will do as many as I can in one sitting, because then I feel like the holes are more than likely going to line up. These are just disposable, so if they aren't going to line up perfect, it'll be okay. Once I have that hole punched in, I then need to get the top hole. Now this one, I take my hole punch and I come in maybe about 1/4 of an inch, eyeball the center, and do a punch for my ring. The rest of them, once I have this one finished, I do line that up underneath. Then I have a guide where I know where to cut the next one. So you can see, here's the one I just punched. You can see the hole there. And I'll bring this hole punch in there and rest it in there. And then I will cut through the one that's at the bottom. This just gets that top hole lined up in the right place so that when they're on your floss ring, everything will be nice and tidy without having to do a lot of measuring. But let's see how we did. There we are. Pretty good. And then you can just leave them like this. They don't need to be rounded. This is an easy way to just use a couple of tools. But because I had the corner rounder and I thought that was kind of nice, I thought I'd go ahead and use it for rounding off the corners of these. I probably should pick up a new one, but for now, we're using the old Creative Memories one. And there you have floss drops at the ready for kitting up, and you'll get multiple, I promise. I think I got close to 25 at least drops from one cereal box. So I'm sure you're going to be looking at boxes and cereal and granola. Little Debbie snack cakes would be fun. All sorts of things at the grocery store in a whole new light. I hope this was helpful, and thank you for joining me. But that's putting together a floss organization system. Bye, guys.